But I think as well, like, with Australian wrestling, we've seen Australian wrestling be taken more serious, I'd say, in the last 10, 15 years. We're seeing, Australian performers being recognized and put in spots for like a WWE and NXTs and, stuff like that, and given opportunities to perform at a very high level as well. It's like not just, a spot on the card. It's like a predominant spot here and a predominant spot there to show how good the skills that Australian talent does have. But I think as well, it's gone from being more of like, okay, you're an Australian. Well, you're going to be called Outback Jack, and, by golly sport, you've got this, mate, to now just being, oh, this is a professional wrestler who's a professional athlete, just happens to be from Australia.
Happens to be from Australia, yeah.
It's not the gimmick, you know what I mean? Like, they're given more, I think, I don't want to say freedom, but more opportunity to represent themselves how they want to be represented.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the whole thing of that stereotype gimmicks have pretty much gone out the window, which is kind of refreshing, even though that's what I grew up on and sort of loved as a kid. But it's good now the guys kept. But the thing is, they need to then still make a character. And like, okay, so you're from Australia. What else you got? And like you used to be, you just rode that all the way home, but now you need to have a character and something to do. But the Australian at the moment, like the Australian scene's always been great, not just because I've been in it, but it's
don't start working me, brother.
But then you can, like, there's always been heaps of talent here, but it was always too hard to travel and whatnot. And then, like, back in the day, like when sort of a lot of us older guys were coming up, that's when there was only the one promotion, which was WWE, and that was pretty much the only place you could work, and like there wasn't really anywhere else going. But now, like your Ring of Honor is a huge promotion now. You've got Impact, you've got AEW, who just had a great show, and like, so WWE isn't the only port of call. I mean, you look at Robbie Eagles, who's the junior heavyweight champion in New Japan, and like that's incredible for Australia to be put in that prominent position. I mean, like I said, he's got all the talent in the world, but he doesn't have to be like you were saying, true blue Aussie, g'day mate. Like, he can just be himself, and he's from Australia, and that's what people love.
Yeah, and it gives them that sort of, credit. I think it also gives it a level of credibility for performers, because I think that, we kind of saw like that sort of thing change. Like, even when I think Tenille was in WWE at the beginning, it was still very much like, oh, I'm from Sydney. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, like they kind of played it up a little bit, but that sort of changing of that time frame as well. So, but I think as well, you started to see other countries become into fruition. But I've watched the Australian wrestling scene since the early 2000s, and I agree, Australian wrestling has always been good, but now it's been like the last 10 or so years where the rest of the world has sort of gone, what are those little fuckers doing down there? And, but that's
what thing, like this. It's good. Like, they've been taking notice, and that's, like I said, that's the beauty of the world being smaller with the social media and like YouTube and stuff like that. Because we remember when, like, one of my favorites, old Concrete Davidson in Sydney, and he came out with the strongman gimmick, and then all of a sudden, like 6 months later, there's the Vaudevillians on WWE. You're like, like, I feel like maybe you borrowed that from somewhere. But that's, that's the thing. Like, people do, like, it used to be here of like, I'm a wrestler and stuff like that, and I know it knows who you are. It's like, well, there's people that watch, like your show here. You're producing a wrestling podcast out of Sydney, and you've got subscribers all over the world. Like the world, because of the internet, the world's a small place, so people can know who you are, like all over the place. I've done other podcasts where they're, oh yeah, we've got heaps of people in like Finland listening. I'm like, really? Like, okay. Like, it's just, that's how small the world is now. Like, if you've got something that's there, it's quality, people will find it. Like, and that's one thing we love about, like, last year, especially doing a lot of those MCW, started this year with the MCW shows, is because the rest of the world wasn't doing crowds yet, and we were, Australian wrestling became sort of very popular to watch, because you're watching wrestling in front of video screens or just no crowd is shit. That defeats the whole purpose of wrestling. But yeah, so we were getting all this feedback from all these, like, UK wrestling podcasts and that sort of stuff, like a lot of British podcast, and a lot of British people were watching it and giving feedback and getting stuff from the States and Canada and stuff like that. So it was good. Good to know that your stuff's getting out there.
And it's getting reached as well, where people sort of, the rest of the world, I think as well, like COVID, in the lockdowns that happened, like Australia was probably one of the only countries that were having sporting events at close to full capacity. Like we were in Sydney. I can't speak for Melbourne, but I'm pretty sure Melbourne had events where it was like almost at full capacity. I know Sydney definitely was. And, that was like, if you want to watch live, like pro wrestling is so much better with a fucking crowd.
It's only pro wrestling with a crowd. Like, it's not that it's so much better. It's nothing without the crowd, because it's not a real contest. So wins or losses don't mean shit. Once again, the only way you can lose is the crowd silent. So if there's no crowd, then you fucking lost.
But that's the thing. Like, for the audience to be able to be on the other side of the world and be tuning in to watch live wrestling, and Australian wrestling is the only live wrestling, are you going to be disappointed? Like, really? Like, I think we got probably one of the best scenes in the world.